afternoon, good evening, everyone. Before we start, I'll just give a couple of seconds for everybody to join. I see a number of people chatting in the general chat, and it would be much appreciated if everybody could just let me know if you can see and hear both Jamie and I this morning.
Hey, everyone.
I love to see it. Gambia, North Carolina, Montreal. I love it. Can see Mike and Jamie. Can you hear us, though? That's the question. Doo-doo.
Hello.
Thank you, everyone. That is much appreciated. Very excited this morning. If anyone was around yesterday for some of the sessions with technical issues, both Jamie and I had mild heart attacks this morning, and we are all very much grateful for technology kicking in at the last second for it to work. So we hope that the glitches have been out of the way and this ends up being smooth sailing from here on out. I want to welcome everybody to day 4 of TMF week and session number 2 of day 4, finding your way through the matrix of data. I have the extreme pleasure of introducing today's speaker, but before I jump into that, I'd love to jump into some typical housekeeping. For some of you, this is already known, but of course the sessions and the slide decks are recorded and will be distributed at the end of each day. All attendees will receive a certificate of attendance for the entire TMF week, which is great. And of course, questions and answers. This is going to be an incredibly interactive session. Jamie has a couple of polls that are put into the session, and so we actively encourage any participation from the audience in both the questions as well as the polls that are going to be coming through. And of course, in between each session, there are the networking presentations and groups that we can join. So we encourage everybody to take advantage of that. Certainly, as the world starts to open up and more face-to-face interaction is coming through, it is great to see everyone coming in from worldwide locations. And the only way to do that easily is through those chats. So moving towards the introduction of today's speaker. Jamie Toth is currently the Global Head of Trial Master File Management at BeiGene, home-based in New Jersey, USA. Prior to joining BeiGene, she was with Daiichi Sankyo, where she implemented global systems and process and was responsible for TMF operations, clinical systems, and records management within the R&D space. Jamie is a steering committee member of the TMF reference model working group, an operations committee member, and a director for the Health Science Records and Archives Association, and has led many industry work streams. She receives her master's degree in clinical research and organization management from Drexel University College of Medicine, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce a very dynamic and a really warm speaker today. Jamie, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Thanks so much, Michael, and Kimberly. So pleased to be here to present during Montreal's TMF week. It's been I would say groundbreaking event since COVID hit in 2020, and it was a really novel idea for Montreal to do this these last few years, and definitely love what they've done with the ads this year. Way over the top, fantastic ads that I've seen all across LinkedIn. So really kudos to Montreal and the marketing team. Very well done. So I'm going to talk to you today about the matrix of data integrity. So data integrity is something that should be on all of our minds, and I think in the last few years, it's really come more to light than it has in previous decades. So first, my disclaimer slide, and you can see my screen okay. Yep, so these are my...
Jamie,
yep.
Sorry, just quickly, did you want to put that into presenter mode to have the first one?
Not yet.
Not yet?
Until
Okay.
I get through a couple of polls. Is it okay to see or no?
Yeah, no, it's great.
Okay. All right, so first, my disclaimer slide. These are my opinions based on my experience and not attributed to Montreal or the company that I work for. All right, so today I'm going to go through what is data integrity. We're going to talk about Alcoa Plus. We're going to talk about planning for the why and what does that mean. And then I'm going to share with you some lessons learned from a real live data integrity audit. So this is the first poll. So Michael, if you can bring up the first poll. And we want to get your opinions and see what you think about what is data integrity. So hopefully that poll is launching. Yep, I see it. Oh, I see number 3, not number 1. Oh, there it is. Okay.
Is data
Yep,
integrity?
Yeah. Down at the bottom. Yep. So what is data integrity? Is it clean data with integrity? Is it something that involves IT? Is it a guide on quality culture? Or is it none of the above?
All right, we'll give a little bit of time here. So tempted. I should have downloaded the Jeopardy theme song.
I know, or some kind of like, cool music, right? All right.
The Matrix theme song.
Yeah, maybe.
And we're getting some pretty good ones here. Just for the group, we will give it another 5 seconds. 4, get those answers in. 3, 2, 1. I'll end the poll.
All right.
Share results.
So great. So those of you who said none of the above, you are absolutely correct. Because data integrity is not about clean data with integrity. I'll go into the definition in a moment. I'm glad none of you said something that involves IT, because that's absolutely correct. It is not something that involves only IT. And it's not a guide on quality culture. So data integrity definition that's been published is that it is a reinterpretable representation of information in a formalized manner suitable for communication, interpretation, or processing. So that's a mouthful, right? And that's a definition that comes from WHO. And we're going to go into further definitions in a moment. So thanks everyone for participating in that poll. And we do have one more poll. So what is the matrix? And that should be, you should see it as poll number 2. So the matrix, is it the world we live in? Is it a movie from the 90s? Is it artificial intelligence used to distract humans? Is it an environment or material? Or is it all of the above? So what is the matrix, and what does the matrix mean to you?
Exactly. All right, we're going to end the poll in 3, 2, 1. Show results.
All right. And what are the results telling us?
Looks like all of the above is a wild winner.
That is correct. So all of the above, because the matrix, for those of you who don't know or aren't informed, but the matrix is a trilogy of films that came out back in the 1990s. And so over the Christmas holiday, my family and I, we decided we would watch the trilogy of films to be ready for the new film that was coming out, Matrix Resurrections. And that came out December 2021. In watching these movies from the late 90s and the early 2000s, it made me realize just how far the industry has come with electronic records and data during the last 2 decades, and also how much more we have to learn. So, Michael, if you join me. For those of you who are not familiar with the Matrix movies, just a little history, brief minute of history for you. So the first movie came out in 1999, and it talked about artificial intelligence. So if you're like me watching that movie back then, it seemed so futuristic. Wow, artificial intelligence, what is that going to look like, 20, 30 years from now? And now a lot of the reality of that movie is, it really came true. So the Matrix also had some cool characters in it. Morpheus, the Oracle. Who knew back then Oracle would be a thing, and as prevalent in the market as it is today. But it also had characters like the Moravian and, of course, Neo. Neo was the computer hacker. Those of you who are familiar, Keanu Reeves, this was one of his popular movies that came out back then. And so if you're not familiar with the synopsis of the movies, I have a little brief synopsis there for you. A dystopia world where machines and artificial intelligence have taken over. Humanity is trapped in a simulated reality, and a computer hacker named Neo sets out to free humanity from the Matrix. So just like when we thought creating a digital inventory of records, going into a storage box was a good idea 5 to 10 years ago, when industry began to slowly move from paper to electronic, it's a good idea to ensure that those records are accessible and have integrity should they be called upon by Neo or any other agent who is requesting them. So I'm now going to go into what is data integrity from the definitions. And I only removed my glasses because it's a little difficult to read with sunglasses on in the office. So we're going to talk about what is data integrity, both from definition perspective and then also what the regs say. So data integrity. So this is a definition from Wikipedia. And you're probably wondering, like I was, what is all the hype about data integrity? Is this a new trend all of a sudden? So I can tell you, though, it's not new. It's been in the regs for many years, as I'm going to go through in a moment, and if not decades. So perhaps it's the result of the most prominent problems identified in inspections today, or a result of current discussions regarding equality culture and quality by design. So in poll 1, I told you data integrity was repeatable representation of information. Wikipedia gives us this definition that goes a bit further and talks about the maintenance of data, consistency over its entire life, as well as how the data needs to be the same as when it was originally recorded years from now. So we have 4 key regulators that I'm going to provide some definitions around. And what do the regulators say about data integrity? So FDA, EMA, MHRA, and PMDA. So the FDA talks about in 21 CFR Part 11, which is not a new regulation, by the way. It's been around for decades, requiring the implementation of controls ensuring data integrity. And that data integrity, this actual regulation is considered the data integrity regulation. And it also covers and has covered electronic records. In 21 CFR Part 820, this references the responsibility also for governance of data integrity. Additionally, in 21 CFR 21, it covers not only GCP, but GXP, so including GMP, GLP, medical devices, and requires that documentation is required, similar to the T-shirt from Montreal. If it's not documented, it didn't happen. And then finally from FDA is the BIMO checklist, which is used to ensure all documents are present in the TMF and that meet Alcoa Plus standards. And we'll talk about Alcoa in a few moments. So from the MHRA, lots of information from the MHRA from back in 2018 and even earlier with the Gray Guide in their Chapter 10, but also in their statutory instruments regulation from 2006, and then the most recent update in 2018. So the MHRA talks about Alcoa Plus principles and state that data governance should address data ownership and accountability throughout the life cycle and consider the design, the operation, and monitoring of processes and systems in order to comply with the principles of data integrity, including control over intentional and unintentional changes to data. Not that that happens, right? Data governance systems then should also include the staff training who are looking at the data and ensure that staff training includes the importance of data integrity principles and the creation of the working environment that enables visibility and actively encourages reporting errors, omissions, and undesirable results. So a lot of great information in these. You'll have the slides and you'll have the sources. It is some nighttime reading, maybe after you get through the matrix, but definitely recommend it. And these are the pieces or the snippets that I've pulled out that relate highly to data integrity. So from the EMA, lots of regulations have been produced from the EMA as far back as 2005. So think about it, 2005, that's 2 decades ago. So data integrity, is it new? Is it a new hype? The EMA has published recently data integrity guidelines that apply to both electronic and paper, and again, promote a quality culture together with implementation of the organization and technical measures that to ensure data integrity. So EMA tells us to assess, mitigate, and communicate data integrity risks in accordance with the principles of quality risk management. And again, think about it, is the hype around data integrity today, is it related to what has gone on in inspections that the regulatory bodies have come across in the past? I think it's also great that they are now giving us this guidance, because probably, you know, a few decades ago, for those of you who've been in the industry for a while, it wasn't as prevalent. Our computer systems weren't as sophisticated. We were using paper. But data integrity principles and what the regs have told us, even as far back as 2005, is that even paper records need to have data integrity. In the EMA guidance for 2018, it also discusses emails, my favorite topic, as many of you probably know, emails to be retained electronically. It also recommends retaining metadata, avoid duplication of documents. Does this sound familiar? A lot of these things come up in inspection findings. Acknowledge how often email correspondence is occurring, and what are you going to do about those attachments? So this is all in the regulations. For the eTMF specifically, the EMA guidance mentions content, control, security, training, validation of the eTMF, scanning, transfers of records to other media, and also touches on eTMF vendors and then GCP inspection of eTMF. And finally, the PMDA. So I used to work for a Japanese pharmaceutical company, so we did have quite a few PMDA inspections. And what the PMDA talks about for data integrity is reliability standards, and they also provide a PMDA checklist. In their guidances, they talk about data integrity must be regulated. And they also had a special agency to consider data integrity, the Office of Advanced Evaluation of Electronic Data. So this office in particular conducts work related to the collection of information on the use of various data related to the analysis of information regarding quality, efficacy, and the safety of drugs. So I'm going to now share the Alcoa Plus principles. And it was interesting, Hops and Lopes and I were in New Orleans a few weeks back doing a workshop, and we asked people around the room, what does Alcoa stand for? The results were interesting. So I did not put a poll in here for this, but it was interesting to hear what people thought of Alcoa Plus. So these are the Alcoa Plus principles, and I've also included the plus. So the attributable, legible, contemporaneous, original, accurate, and then the pluses at the bottom, complete, consistent, available, and corroborated, as well as enduring. So these are the Alcoa Plus is the foundation upon which data integrity and good documentation practices are built. Much like the matrix, the Alcoa Plus principles have also been around since the 90s. As I mentioned in a lot of the regulations, they've been mentioned, and they've also had a reboot, right? So we've seen the reboot of these regulations being updated and more prominent now and in our face to remind us about the importance of data integrity, not just in our electronic records, but in our paper records. So when the reboot happened in 2010 of the Alcoa Plus, the plus requirement was defined to also talk about how documents and data needed to be processed and retained. So for example, the MHRA, they consider the implications of the transition from paper to electronic records and the importance of maintaining appropriate integrity controls by such means as locking files, having controlled copies, as well as versioning. So Alcoa Plus is really, the underlying way to ensure data integrity of your documents, whether they be in paper or electronic. So planning for the why, and you're probably wondering, what is she talking about? So the why. So in the movie, The Matrix Reloaded, which was the second installment of The Matrix, Moravian tells Neo causality is action, reaction, cause and effect. It's important to understand the why. So the same holds true for our data. So with our data, we need to know the origins and provenance of our data, how the data was generated so that we can understand it and prove its accuracy, integrity, and applicability. Being able to maintain that traceability means that the data can be understood and also trusted. Being able to produce satisfactory responses to the inspectors when they ask for the who, what, where, when, how, and why are key to passing a data integrity audit or inspection. In its March 2018 data integrity guidance from the MHRA, they outlined exactly what you need to consider regarding the generation and presentation of regulatory data so that you can have confidence in the quality and reliability of data. So in that guidance, they talk about the data integrity risk assessment, or the DIRA, where the processes that produce data or where the data is obtained are mapped out, and each of the formats and their controls are identified, and the data criticality and inherent risks are also documented. So the regulators have also set the foundation for ensuring that you understand the why of the data. The scope of data integrity includes all records. So whether they be in the TMF, other project records, these nice places we like to call project working files, the other business records, non-project specific records, whatever you call it. But when you think of the TMF may have authoritative sources that are not just in your eTMF. So you need to think about the full scope of data integrity for all of your records. And all those records must ensure Alcoa Plus and follow data integrity governance, because all the records, let's not forget, could be subject to inspection. Oops. So in poll 3, I want to ask if you have been through a data integrity audit.
Right, and I just published this, and I did see a number of comments telling me to slow down because there's a little bit of a delay. So my apologies for the first couple if I did it a little quickly. I'm going to give it a little more time for this one here just to collect more responses.
Awesome.
So I saw you, I heard you. I want to make it up.
Put your sunglasses on, then maybe you'll see more clearly.
Into the matrix we go.
So in poll 3, have you been through a data integrity audit? Yes, no, what's that? One's coming soon, or I don't know.
And for those that had a delay on poll 1 or 2, if you could be so kind as to just throw up a quick comment in the live chat, or an emoji, or a symbol, something that tells me that you've had the opportunity to participate into it, then I'll know that for whatever reason there was the delay for you guys. I know that you guys are now able to participate. Awesome. All right, so if I verbally say that I'll be ending it in a couple of seconds, speak now, forever hold your peace. Aha, I see 2 comments. I think we are good. All right, so I'm going to end the poll now.
Okay.
And show the results. Here we go.
Can you read them?
Yeah, absolutely. So in poll number 3, have you been through a data integrity audit? Answer A, yes, 20.4%. Answer B, no, 57.4%. So the vast majority of people have not gone through it. What is that? Is 9.3%. So glad that you were part of the session today. D, one is coming, 3.7%. Very excited to have you guys on board so that you can navigate through the matrix. And E, I do not know, 9.3% there.
Okay. All right, good. All right, fantastic. So good. What I'm about to share then, for about 80% of you, right? Listen up, because I have been through a data integrity audit. And so what I'm going to share with you is my personal experience going through that audit, and also some key takeaways for all of you and what and how you can prepare. So again, in the matrix, Smith was a super program that was running against Neo. And so Smith and his cronies are coming after you. So much like in real life, the inspections are coming. Are you ready? Unlike Neo, we can't run from Smith or the inspectors, so we can't panic. So we need to be prepared, and we need to, create what is needed now so that we're prepared for the future. So as I mentioned, the next few slides are examples of what an auditor or inspector may be looking for that you should consider. I did not provide an exhaustive list because I could be here all day at the Montreal TMF week, and I know they have other people who are presenting. So the examples are not exhaustive, but it's a good starting point for you if you need to take a look at how to present data during an audit or inspection. And as I mentioned before, this is based on my own experience as an interviewee and key contributor into a data integrity audit. So authorized access. So the first thing is electronic. And again, you're thinking about the who, the why, the what, when, and how, all of these inputs. So I've listed some of them for you. So who has access to your system? And this could be systems, because in a data integrity audit, they are looking at more than just the eTMF. So my focus today is only going to be referring to the eTMF, but think about those other systems that make up your clinical ecosystem. So who has access? How is access granted? But also, how is it revoked? What are the SOPs, work instructions, processes wrapped around that? What kind of recertification process do you have? What's the turnaround time for granting and revoking access? How often do you do recertification of those users? And then do you have a list of all the users who have access, including the type of access that they have to a particular study, system, what have you? And then what kind of reports do you have that can be generated, and are there work instructions in place? So in the outputs, I've shared with you, the ideas of what you need to do. Think of the outputs as recommendations. So create a checklist by system for your inspections. Know which reports are needed to be run them periodically, and check them and confirm the access rights. So don't wait until the inspection to happen before you create a report to pull the information you need. Run it again, do test runs of it, make sure it's pulling correctly, so that you create an access report that you can produce for an audit or inspection, and it shows date of request, date of activation, type of access, any modifications to the access, as well as any dates of deactivation of those users, or if they're due to terminations. And also create the necessary work instructions, because as we know, if it's not documented, not only did it not happen, it's not being followed. So I talked about electronic, but there's also authorized access to paper. So even with paper, and if you still have some hybrid trials running, or longer oncology trials that started before maybe your ETMF system went live, you probably have paper. So you still need to think about the same things with your paper. Who has access to it? How is paper retrieved? Where is all the paper? When's the last time you did a records retrieval test? How long did it take? With COVID days now, if you have storage in Iron Mountain, how long is it going to take for Iron Mountain to get you that box back? And do you even know which box to get back? So again, some inputs to think about, and then in the outputs or recommendations, creating checklists by a file room maybe, or paper storage, or maybe you do it by compound or something. But the idea is creating your checklist and have it by organized so that you know exactly where your paper is. Run tests of data integrity of the paper. How long have they been stored in Iron Mountain? What do they look like? Are they even, can you touch them? Are they going to fall apart? Have they been there for 24 and a half years and now you need to go get them? And then finally, create the necessary work instructions that you need in order to conduct these paper data integrity tests, as well as to tell people how any ongoing paper needs to be filed. Do you have inventories in the boxes, etc. So now you know about authorized access and to electronic records and paper records and what you should do. Are you ready now? Probably not. So let me share with you a few more lessons learned. Audit trails. So this is a big one, right? And I think when people think about data integrity, they maybe only think of audit trail, but obviously it's so much more. So there's a lot of inputs, a lot of outputs with the audit trail. The first and foremost, a colleague of ours in the industry, Jillian Gittins, gave a presentation for a conference in October around audit trails. So I recommend you look that up. But in the audit trails, you want to look at, you want to make sure first, is somebody looking at the audit trail? What does it actually look like? Are there errors in the audit trail? Is data truncated? Do you actually know what you're seeing? Is it human readable format? So is it, 1,000 pages and nobody's possibly ever going to read it, and it's a bunch of white space and just, actually looks like the matrix with a bunch of numbers or data going across it. So you really need to think about what is the audit trail that you need to pull? What does that look like? What format is it going to be in? Do a test run of the audit trail, and then create work instructions on how the audit trail gets pulled. Should it be requested during an audit or inspection? And some of the outputs, again, conducting periodic checks of the data throughout the life of the trial or within the system. Create an escalation plan if there's issues with data or if data is not being entered when and as it should be. Validate the process for the pull of the audit trail. Create checklists, document how your check is going to be conducted and when. Maybe during your mock inspection, you also do a audit trail pull. And obviously create necessary work instructions in order to do all of this. Transfers and migrations. So this is a big one with data integrity, because in many companies, we are either transferring something to someone or receiving something back from someone, whether it be a CRO or a compound that we've acquired. So transfers and migrations is really critical in data integrity. So making sure that you have the rationale for the data migration or transfer. What's the process? Is that process validated? What kind of quality checks are going to be done before, during, and after the transfer or migration? Audit trails. So if it's a transfer or migration from another ETMF system, what is the audit trail going to look like? Is it going to be a complete study audit trail? Where is that going to be filed? So all this needs to be mapped out and work instructions created. So I've obviously said, create migration plan, conversion plan, whatever you want to call it, create your checklist for data integrity, how you're going to do that checksum after data comes over to ensure everything came over that should come over, and then obviously create work instructions for the people who need to participate in the transfer or migration. So I've gone through 4 subject areas or categories. Do you think you're ready to get through the matrix now? Are you getting the hint of what's needed? Obviously, create those work instructions, because if it's not documented, it didn't happen, even in this matrix that we might be in, because it's easy to wait for the inspection to happen and then panic. But if we are proactive and we create necessary work instructions, we can actually have some calm before the storm, because we know that we've done the work, we've used our checklist, we've done our data integrity pools. And so do you think, so I think there's 2 more categories that I'm going to go over with you, just so that I can give you and I'm watching time, Michael, so just keep me honest. So I have 2 more categories, and I'll go through them quickly. So the first one to think about for data integrity is escalation process and oversight. So you may be wondering, what does this mean? We have oversight of our CRO, we have oversight of vendors, now we need oversight of our data. Yes, you need oversight of your data. So you want to make sure that the data is actually present. Some systems, if there's an API running or an integration happening, did it actually happen? Was there, something failing that a log didn't get checked by an admin on the back end? So you want to make sure that data is present where it should be, and where it should be, but also when it should be. And then, is the data accurate? Do you have work instructions in place for entering of data or for data coming in? So in escalation process and oversight, some of the recommendations are to conduct periodic checks of data throughout the life of the data. So if you're expecting, as milestones are achieved in CTMS, that data is coming into your eTMF, make sure that somebody who is in the know is checking to make sure that data did come through when it should come through. Document in a plan how such checks would be done. Create an escalation plan if necessary, and then obviously create your work instructions and have them available, and make sure everyone who needs to use them are trained. And that brings me to training, because we can't forget about training, because in the regs, and especially EMA and MHRA, talk about people being trained on data integrity. So you want to make sure that users who are entering data have the proper training, and that their training is also documented and filed in the appropriate training system. So here you want to think about the who and the what. And you want to also obviously make sure there's work instructions, documentation in place for the users, so that they have something to reference and rely on if they are in doubt. So in conclusion, I've shared with you 6 categories of focus. There may be others, but again, this is based on my personal experience. And I just want to end with, to make it through the matrix, you need to understand the regulations, ensure Alcoa Plus standards are being followed, get to the why of your data, and put in place regular checks to ensure data integrity. And finally, document it all in well-defined work instructions.
Amazing. Jamie, I'm going to have you stop sharing here. I'll remove from stream, and we'll flip over here. And as we tackle some of the questions, and there's a lot of them, and we've got about 6 minutes, so we'll try to get through as many as possible, and just picking them as I see them here. One user said many of the items.
Sorry about that. Jamie, if you could just remove yourself from the green room, the stream. Yes, so we can't share anything else. Thank you.
There we go.
That's perfect.
And everybody, that was the wizard behind the curtain that we have. You may have recognized Kim that's there, and so she is amazing. and keeping us on track. But going back to the question, many of the items that you've discussed are owners outside of the TMF team. Where does data management plan and biostatistical plan fit in your data integrity process?
So again, I was talking from the experience of the eTMF. So there are systems outside of the eTMF, but those systems should also have data integrity considerations applied. So everything that I shared from the 6 topic areas would also apply to the data management area for the systems that are in data management. So from the people to the training to the user access and also to the audit trails.
Perfect. Joanne's got a great question that gets a little bit granular that may help those that are about to have that audit. And her question is, what regulations specifically discuss certified copies? A certified copy is only valid through the date it is obtained, as the information post-certification may change for many reasons. How do you manage this for your team?
So there's been a lot of discussion around certified copy. I know that at a few TMF summits and even on chats, how certified copy is done is also been a big topic. So I would just say that if you have a certified copy process and you have a system saying that a document followed a certified copy, and when I say document, a paper document followed a certified copy to become an electronic certified copy, to ensure that your process actually, if your process includes at the end of certifying, you're destroying it, that you're actually doing what you say you're doing. I know in October 2018, Andy Fisher talked about, if you have a certified copy process and the last step is just destruction, you're not destroying, then they would be questioning, why aren't you doing that? So I would just say, document your certified copy process and how you're doing it. And if your system is enabling the confirmation of a certified copy process, that your users are trained in what that means and what the final outcome is going to be.
And maybe one last one here, an interesting question. Which checkpoints can be added into the eTMF for data integrity checking?
Which checkpoints? I mean, I would say all 6 that I shared, because they did come from an eTMF perspective. So obviously, if you have, I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not sure. Maybe the question needs to be more granular.
Well, we'll connect you with Devanji. It seems like an interesting one. I think it builds off of the 6 points that you have. So I'm wondering if that's where the question is coming from, to add something in the workflows specifically, but we can always regroup with that.
Okay.
Okay. What we'll do is we'll transition here. Kim, if you can advance the slide so that I can talk about the next session that is coming up, as well as the networking that is happening. But our next session is going to be building TMF resilience in an ever-evolving clinical trial landscape, held by Fran Ross. Before we conclude today's session, I just want to say a very sincere thank you to Jamie Toth for speaking today and delivering the session to help try to navigate through the matrix. I want to thank everybody for their questions, their participations, and last but not least, a sincere apology for closing off those polls a little too fast. I underestimated the delays, and so for those that were not able to participate, I owe you one. But for those that did get to answer, a sincere thank you to everyone, and look forward to seeing you all in the next sessions. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.